Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Meyers. We're here every week, as you know, visiting with interesting people, dealing with topical issues, and this is a topical issue.
Indeed it is. We're going to return to the subject of EPIC charter schools, which we talked about 2 weeks ago with a couple of folks from the EPIC school. We are having a couple of guests today that will take perhaps a little different view, maybe bring a different perspective to the total discussion. Our view is not pro or con anything. Our view is to give you adequate information to make your own decisions about what you ought to do with your child's education.
There are charter schools, there are online charter schools, and right now a lot of people are talking about it across the state. It is a consistent storyline of public education in all 77 counties. So anxious today to learn more about it. Kent and I'll have more after this with our guest on charter schools and online charter schools specifically.
ECU always hosts this event every year called Tiger Tank, where you bring your ideas for a product or business. Tiger Tank itself actually was a very big competition. What we came up with is a product that allows you to play old video games on a phone. I am Cody Greenwood. I am studying mass media communications at ECU, and I am Chickasaw. When I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. One of the biggest things a lot of people don't understand, it's a lot of social anxiety and awkwardness. A lot of people may have seen it as a setback, but in reality, I find it a way to be motivated to do something with my life. Being Chickasaw is resilience. They never give up. My grandfather, he's always told me, you get back what you put in, and I just want to give back to the Chickasaw Nation that is given to me.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guests.
We are really pleased today to have two representatives of what we will just kind of loosely call public schools. That's a little inaccurate, but we have invited Alicia Priest, the president of the Oklahoma Education Association, to be our guest. Alicia did her undergraduate work at OCU, got her master's in secondary education at the University of Central Oklahoma. She's had 16 years teaching experience, and she has been designated as Teacher of the Year in one of those years. She is the president, as I say, of the OEA. She has been on the governor's leadership team for education, and since 2015 has occupied the presidency position at OEA. Alicia, glad to have you.
Thank you.
We also have the superintendent of Fort Gibson Public Schools, Scott Farmer. Scott has been in the education field for a number of years, has been elevated to superintendent at Fort Gibson, and sees the education system from a little different perspective than anybody else, being in the superintendent role. Scott, really glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Scott, tell us about yourself. I like for our viewers to just know more about our guests in general.
Absolutely, I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I was blessed to be born in an educator's household. Both my parents were educators, over 30 years experience. So I'm a second generation educator and proud that I have 3 kids, and my oldest of which is about to enter high school, and she has aspirations of being the 3rd generation of educator, and we're certainly hoping that she'll pursue that academic endeavor and go touch lives of kids. Been in education 16 years, served in every capacity from mathematics teacher to principal to assistant superintendent, and most recently assigned to the superintendency. I've served in that capacity for 8 years, 7 of which were at Salisal Public Schools, and recently had the opportunity to join the Fort Gibson Public School System.
And tell us about Fort Gibson in general.
Great school system, about 1,800 students. We sit as a suburb of Muskogee. Great community, and that's one thing that I'm proud that we offer as a public school system.
It's pretty over there, isn't it?
It is beautiful. It's beautiful right there off of Fort Gibson Lake, right on the Arkansas River. We offer a wide range of programs, very supportive community, and that's one thing that we're proud that we do have, is just a very strong, tight-knit community.
All right, and Alicia, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am one of 4. I have 3 brothers, and went through public school, and public school really saved me.
Where'd you grow up?
Oklahoma City. Went to Putnam City schools, Hilldale, Rollingwood, and graduated from the original. And then am the first person in my family to go to college and graduate. And so I have a degree in Spanish with a background in education, and then minors in grammar and composition and world literature, because I love diagramming sentences. So Scott's the math guy, I'm the language girl, so we're a good team.
Yeah, you guys could do really good on an SAT if you combined your skills there, I'm guessing.
Or be a team on Jeopardy or something.
Right, formidable. And then I taught Spanish and English language learners in Yukon for 16 years, and before I became vice president and then president of the Oklahoma Education Association.
I heard in Kent's intro that you were Teacher of the Year. Where was that?
I was Teacher of the Year for Parkland Elementary School.
Well, congratulations.
So
on
that was a fantastic honor.
Okay, well, a couple of weeks ago we had a show, and representatives from Epic Charter School were here. And this is a topic that when I was running for governor, traveling the state, I heard a lot about. And I'd love to have your perspective on charter schools in general, but online charter schools specifically.
Well, here's what we believe, that every child deserves the best education possible, and that really starts with a teacher in the classroom, because they're the ones that are going to make the most difference for that child. And so so we believe that all kids should have an opportunity to have a system that best fits their needs. We believe that a traditional public school meets the needs of 90-95% of the kiddos in the state of Oklahoma.
And so charter schools in general, you wish they didn't exist in Oklahoma? Does that sum up your view?
Not necessarily. I think that there's a place, and charter schools started out as a way to show innovation. But then the intent of a charter was then to move that innovation back into the traditional public schools too. And so I think the traditional public schools do a lot of that innovation. Unfortunately, budgets have been cut over the years, and so with bare bones, there's not a lot of extra that you can do to pull in supplemental things, and so you do have to depend on your community. Our communities are so supportive, and so we need to do what's right for kids, and making sure that our traditional public schools are funded, because they do serve about 95% of the children in the state of Oklahoma, is imperative.
Well, we tend to view things through our own lens. So if you're a parent, you view it through a parent lens. If you're a teacher, you view it through a teacher lens. You're a superintendent. How do you view what we're talking about here from a superintendent's lens?
Thank you for that question. And fortunately, I'm a parent, a teacher, and a superintendent, so I get to view it through 3 lenses.
This is going to be a complicated answer.
Well,
I guess.
I'll
You
tell
wear
you.
trifocals in.
Some of your viewers may be surprised to hear my take on this. I believe since the days of Horace Mann that education is organic, and it changes, and it has to change. And so I believe in today's society there is a place for virtual education. I just happen to believe that what we do in the brick and mortar public school system, and even through our own virtual systems, is better. And I believe that we have the numbers to bear that out. So I think there are situations in the lives of kids, because no 2 kids, and thank goodness for this, no 2 kids are alike. And I think we have an obligation to meet them where they are. And if we have those situations that parents need extra support from us, and I think that's why we have such a strong community, because we're willing to meet them there, I think it's incumbent upon us to find a solution that works for them. I just think what we offer in Fort Gibson, Oklahoma, and many public schools in Oklahoma offer a better virtual option, and one that's more affordable and bears out better for the kids of this great state.
Well, one thing that struck me, Alicia, about what you said, I can recall visiting with a teacher in the lower grades. I don't remember how high her teaching went, but asked her how long she was going to teach. Was she thinking about doing something else? And she said she was going to teach as long as the students paid more attention to her than they did to their peers. And when that changed, she was going to leave. But I guess for the first very formative years of a child, that perhaps aside from the parents, the most important person in that child's life is the teacher that they see 5 days a week, and they get very, very attached to them. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, as I said earlier, I mean, that's a great observation, and the teacher in the classroom is the number one influence on that student. We're with them for 4 or 5 days a week now, and for up to 7 hours a day, depending on what grade level and, you know, if they're going to change classes. So making sure that there is a connection between the teacher and the student, and that they are, and the connection with the parents, to make sure that we're all on the same page, working together to make sure that student can get to the next level. It's imperative.
Scott, I'm going to guess that as superintendent, you've had a parent come up and say, well, we're pulling our kids out of Fort Gibson School. We're going to enroll them in EPIC.
Certainly.
What do you tell them when that happens?
The first thing I always do is let's sit down and talk. You know, what are the issues? Are there issues that you feel it's best for your child to make that decision? And what can we do to fix that? What can we do to, again, meet you where you are? And let's look at our virtual option. Now, we do have a pretty high expectation in Fort Gibson, and even in our virtual model, it's not, here's your login, you know, username and password, good luck. It's, we're going to be checking in on you, and we're going to have those conversations around the dinner table on where's the improvement, where's our progress, and if we're not seeing that progress, welcome back to the brick and mortar classroom, because there's an expectation. You bring up a good
point, because I think a lot more districts offer an online education than most parents or people would suspect. But I also, this is my opinion, I don't have anything to back it up with, that they don't market it very strongly because they don't really want kids to drop out of the normal day-to-day activity in the school and go to the online preference.
And the point I want to make on that, and I appreciate that question, is, you know, there's no monetary incentive for a kid to stay brick and mortar or go to our virtual. In the financial structure of the state of Oklahoma, the compensation for public school is the same through the formula, whether they're at home on a computer or in school. I believe you see that because we're not in the business of marketing. We're in the business of educating and loving kids and making sure that they reach their full potential, not who has the best market strategy. And when we see a scenario where a kid needs that, that's where we know we have the resources and we go in and say, hey, here's what's available. But it's not our frontline strategy, because there is no, when you look at the evolution of education throughout the years, from the trends of when the radio was invented and people thought that was going to revolutionize education, another way to deliver content. After that, they came back to the classroom teacher. It's not because education and educators are stuck in the status quo. It's because you go back to what works. You can try things and be innovative, but you always go back to what works, and there is no replacement for a solid teacher that has a heart for kids in the classroom.
Scott Farmer is the superintendent at Fort Gibson. We'll have more with him and Alicia Priest when we return on The Verdict.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative, and this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and we're discussing online charter schools with Alicia Priest and Scott Farmer. Alicia, let's talk about the funding. And if you just say, how are our public schools funded, it can be a really long answer if you wanted to include everything and all the sources. But how would you describe how our typical public schools are funded and how charter schools are funded and how online charter schools are funded?
So we're all funded basically the same way through the school funding formula, which is based on how many students you have on the October count day, and then you get a certain number of dollars per student and per what grade level they are, what special needs they may have if they are gifted. Scott is a superintendent, so he may have a more succinct way of describing that funding mechanism.
Is there a dollar amount you can attribute to per student? Is there a number that everyone can agree, yes, that's how much each student is paid by the education is paid by the state for that student? Is there a number?
Well, there's not a real simple calculation on that. If you wanted to boil it down to the state aid formula, what's the factor this year? It's around $3,400 per child that runs through the appropriated formula. That has a lot of tentacles that feed that, which range from ad valorem property taxes to sales tax, gross production, REA tax. It gets pretty pretty
and it can vary a lot because of that ad valorem number from one part of the state to another.
It does, but that's the one thing, and I'm a student of the funding formula. I believe in it. I think when you look at the research that we've done from state to state, from State Aid Task Force on, we have a very equitable formula. Where we see a problem right now in the comparing and contrasting of EPIC charter schools or other virtual charter schools is that they're throwing the formula just like a brick and mortar school. So where I may have a local ad valorem base, and so I get some offset from a local ad valorem, my state aid that I get appropriated dollars from the state is reduced as a result of that. While EPIC has no ad valorem because their boundaries are the state of Oklahoma, no houses, no structures, no power plants in their district, they get all state aid. But when you look at the formula and you really are a student of it, since we are in an equitable system, they do receive ad valorem, but it's on the backside. It's basically, since I get ad valorem, their state aid goes up. It's a good balancing act. So in other words, when you have school districts that have really high ad valorem, they have low state aid. If they have low ad valorem, they have high state aid. So EPIC Charter Schools soaks up over $40 million of the state aid formula, which if we were to put that back into the public school system would be more money to my kids and other kids.
What happens to your funding in subsequent years if you lose a student to EPIC Charter? How does that affect Fort Gibson?
That student becomes on the roll of EPIC Charter Schools, and that money follows them.
So if you had 10 students, and let's use that, what was it, 3,400 approximately, you'd lose that much money the following year.
Correct.
Because those students wouldn't be there.
That's correct.
Okay. Talk about, Alicia, talk about comparative test scores between traditional public and charter.
Great question. While we don't believe that a test score is the end-all be-all way to grade anyone, a child, a school, or a district, we do believe that you can draw some comparisons. Graduation rates are another piece of that. Traditional public schools graduate about 86%, while Epic charter graduation rate is about 44%. Virtual charters like Epic are traditionally lower in their test scores overall, but the biggest difference is in 3rd grade English language arts and then in 10th grade math. But overall they show much lower test scores. In 10th grade math, 26% of our public school students score advanced. Epic, only 10% score advanced. So there are some comparisons to make there.
Those are all statistics that are available through your website and would be something that a parent ought to consider in making the decision.
Absolutely.
What about student-teacher ratio? How does that compare?
If I may, could I jump in on that
Absolutely.
one?
Sure.
Talk a little bit back on the funding
Okay.
and the performance. You know, when we look at the comparison between brick and mortar and even brick and mortar online options, I have an online option at Fort Gibson Public Schools, 91% success rate. Every one of our kids before they graduate high school will take at least one online class. That's a graduation requirement.
So that shows it can work.
It can.
If it's administered properly,
When
it
we
can
have
work.
that community and that relationship and that conversation in our community, it can be successful. And the problem I have on the funding side and the performance side is, you know, I am fortunate to be able to feed my kids every day, to be able to transport them, and that all comes at a cost. And when virtual onlines are making the same amount of money to educate a child but don't provide those ancillary services and are performing at a rate 60% lower than the average school in Oklahoma, it's just something I think lawmakers and parents first and foremost should really take a deep look at. And when we come to student-teacher ratio, that's important. I don't care if you're looking at a virtual model or a classroom of 20 kids in front of a 3rd grade teacher. Class size matters. And if anyone that wants to put statistics out there, my degree's in mathematics. Statistics aren't lost on me. I know how they work, but I can tell you, if anyone wants to challenge that, come spend a day with us and take a look in the classroom.
Well, how do you judge the teacher-student ratio for an online charter school? Is it apples to apples, or what number do you come up with?
I don't believe it is, because when you look at accreditation reports, you'll see a chemistry teacher in a virtual model might have 2,000 kids assigned to them. And that's been a play on the system when the legislature some years ago, albeit we were in the middle of an economic downturn, of the Great Recession, and there were class size moratoriums placed in the law on the old House Bill 1017 of the early 90s. When those class size requirements went away, it was a Pandora's box of you could assign as many kids to a teacher as you want. And it became more work in the background on paper just to say, yeah, they teach 2,000 kids, but they really don't teach them. They're just assigned to them.
We're just about out of time. What do each of you want to say in a final sentence or two to our audience about your school and your school system?
I'll jump on that because I'm very proud of our school system and proud of public education. I think we offer a model. I think it is the great civil right topic of our time. I think it gives every kid an opportunity to experience community and to be successful and not let their circumstances define them. And I'm proud to be a part of public education in Fort Gibson Public Schools.
Alicia, just a few seconds left, but the final word will be yours.
Well, many public schools have a virtual or blended system, and when you make the connection between the teacher and the student and the school district and there's still buy-in there, that's what's going to be best for kids.
All right, Alicia Priest and Scott Farmer, thank you all so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Kent and I will have a final word when we return.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. A couple of weeks ago, we had some representatives from Epic Charter School come in, sit down, and talk about their model for educating kids in public school forum. And today, the president of the OEA, Alicia Priest, and the superintendent of Fort Gibson School, Scott Farmer, in to give what I would verge as an opposing view, but at least illustrate the benefits of the traditional public model.
Yes, we hope when a viewer watches both shows, they have a balanced presentation, and then they can make their own decision based upon the best information available.
And it's, it's whenever you're talking about kids and education, it becomes compassionate, it becomes personal, it becomes emotional. And I thought our guests, all four of them that came on the show, did a great job in taking their own view.
They really did.
We got some website information, how you can continue to study this topic if you'd like. Alicia's can be reached at okea.org. That's okea.org. And Superintendent Farmer can be reached at fortgibson.k12.ok.us. And Kent and I have a website called theverdict.tv.
That's where we hide.
Tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future show or a topic you'd like to see us discuss going forward. Until then, we will see you next week right here on The Verdict.